It started with a smile, that kind of smile that feels like sunlight after a long winter. He wasn't supposed to mean anything to me. He was just a man from our church fellowship, polite, humorous, and always ready to help when the choir needed fixing with sound or when the youth group needed chairs arranged. But that night, something changed. We were alone, after everyone had left. The fellowship hall was half lit, the smell of coffee still hanging in the air. He offered to walk me to my car, just being a gentleman. Or so I thought. "Thank you," I said, clutching my Bible against my chest. He smiled again, that same smile that kept finding ways to melt my guard. "You always thank me," he said softly, eyes fixed on me. "When do I get to thank you?" I didn't know what to say. But I felt something tremble inside me. It was wrong, but it was alive. He stepped closer, his cologne mixing with the cold night air. My heart raced, and before I could resist, he brushed a strand of hair from my face. That touch, gentle, respectful, but filled with something unspoken, opened a door I wasn't ready to enter. That was the night my fellowship became my temptation. Studio microphone. Hey everyone listening to this confession, before I tell you how deep I fell, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who still believes in control. Because sometimes, control is just a lie we tell ourselves, until desire shows us how fragile we really are. The next Sunday, I tried to act normal. He sat in the third row, same as always. His wife wasn't there that morning, she was out of town for a church seminar. I could feel his eyes on me during the worship, even as I lifted my hands in surrender. It felt sinful to breathe that air. It felt like his gaze was tracing every word that came from my lips. Later that day, I got a message from him. "You looked beautiful singing today, like you meant every word." That message was the match that met my gasoline. At first, I didn't reply. But by nightfall, loneliness became my accomplice. I texted back. "You noticed?" From there, everything spiraled, slowly, sweetly, destructively. I started waiting for his texts. Started dressing differently for fellowship. Started sitting in the row where I could catch his glance, not too obvious, but enough to feed that invisible current between us. Then one evening, he asked if I could help him plan the next youth retreat. "We'll just meet to go over logistics," he said. My heart knew it wasn't about logistics. But my mind let it happen anyway. We met at a coffee shop off Main Street. He wore that same soft blue shirt, the one that made his eyes look like ocean tides under light. For an hour, we pretended to discuss plans. But our words danced around what our hearts were already screaming. When he brushed my hand across the table, it wasn't an accident. When I didn't pull away, it wasn't either. That's how. I shouldn't have gone back that night. But my mind, it wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the echo of his laughter and the way his eyes called me beautiful, like he'd known the word was made for me. The fellowship meeting had ended 2 hours earlier, yet my car keys still lay untouched on the wooden table in the hall. The lights were dim, and the air smelled faintly of rain and sin. Everyone had left, except him. "Still here?" he'd asked, voice low, warm, full of something that wasn't supposed to exist in that room. I smiled, pretending not to feel what was stirring inside me. "Just locking up," I said. He walked closer, too close. "You're trembling," he whispered. And he was right. I was. Not from fear, but from recognition. Something forbidden was waking up in me, and I didn't know how to silence it. He touched my wrist. Gently. Like testing the waters of my resistance. And in that single moment, I stopped being who I thought I was. "Hey beautiful souls watching right now," I said softly to my viewers, almost like a confession. If you're new to this channel, please, subscribe, like, and share this video. What I'm about to say isn't pride, it's truth. Because what began as fellowship, ended in something no prayer could cleanse. Back to that night. He leaned in. His breath brushed against my ear, words melting the air. You deserve more than prayers, he murmured. And then, without asking, he kissed me, slow, deliberate, searching. It wasn't supposed to happen. But the warmth of his lips broke every vow I had ever whispered under the church roof. His hands found the small of my back, guiding me toward the shadowed corner of the room. Every cell in me screamed, "Stop," but my heart whispered, "Stay." And I stayed. Because sometimes, the forbidden feels safer than the familiar. The night bled into morning. The candles that once flickered for prayer now burned for passion. But the real ache came after, not from his absence, but from how easily I gave him the part of me that no sermon could return. If you're still watching, I said again, voice trembling, don't forget to like this video. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been touched so deeply that you forgot who you were? I paused the recording, tears smudging my mascara. Because in confessing, I was reliving. He'd called me his peace. But I was his escape. And that difference destroyed everything. I can still feel that night, it's carved in me like a scar that never fully healed. The night I lost my treasure wasn't loud, it was quiet. Painfully quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, almost holy, as if the air itself was warning me not to do what I was about to do. I remember standing by the window, watching the rain trace soft trails down the glass. I had invited him in under the pretense of fellowship, an innocent extension of comfort, that's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew, comfort wasn't what he came for. And it wasn't what my heart was craving either. He looked at me with that disarming calm, the kind of calm that hides storms beneath. His shirt was damp from the rain, his voice low, soothing, and dangerous. Do you ever feel unseen? He asked. And I nodded. Because I did. Every day. Maybe that was my weakness, I was tired of being invisible. He saw me, touched the parts of me my husband no longer reached. Not just my body, but my silence, my hunger, my loneliness. When he stepped closer, my breath shortened. The thunder outside echoed the rhythm of my heartbeat. His hand brushed mine, not by accident, not by mistake. It was deliberate, warm, and trembling. I should have stepped back. But I didn't. That touch, it lit a fuse inside me I had long buried. He whispered my name like it was a secret prayer. And for the first time in years, I felt alive, dangerously alive. I told myself it was just a moment of weakness. A simple act of comfort between two broken souls. But the truth? It was the night I traded my peace for passion. The couch became our confession booth, our sin wrapped in the fragrance of desire. His hands explored like a man searching for lost meaning, and mine followed, desperate to forget the vows I once meant. Somewhere between the storm's growl and our heavy breaths, guilt began to whisper. But pleasure screamed louder. And that was the night I lost my treasure, not to theft, but to my own hunger. Subscribe to my channel, loves. Because stories like this aren't just told, they're felt. If you've ever lost yourself in someone else's arms, someone you knew you shouldn't, then you already understand me. Broken heart, like, share, and subscribe. Because this is just the middle of my confession. The night that changed everything. Fellowship. A harmless connection between two lonely hearts, bound by emotional needs, not lust. Or so I kept telling myself. The evening breeze brushed softly against my skin as I stood by the balcony, watching the city lights shimmer like fallen stars. My phone buzzed, his name glowing on the screen. You okay? He texted. Simple words, yet they felt like hands tracing my bare emotions. I shouldn't have replied. But loneliness, it makes you forget your principles. I told him to come over. For comfort, for company, at least that's what I told myself when I heard the knock on my door 15 minutes later. When I opened the door, his presence swallowed me whole. The look in his eyes wasn't fellowship, it was fire barely contained. And yet, I didn't resist. You shouldn't have come, I whispered, stepping back. You shouldn't have invited me, he replied, voice low, dangerous, knowing. The tension between us thickened. Every step he took toward me erased a piece of my control. My breath became uneven, and my chest trembled, not out of fear, but anticipation. And before I could blink, my moral wall crumbled. His lips met mine with desperate hunger, claiming what shouldn't be his. That night, I felt both found and lost. His hands, his breath, his heat, all of it turned my loneliness into addiction. I thought it was just fellowship, but I ended up giving him everything, my heart, my reason, my treasure. By dawn, when silence returned, I knew something sacred in me had been spent. And when I looked into the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She was no longer the faithful wife. She was the fellowship gone wrong, the confessor, the betrayer, the broken. And yet, when his message came again that night, "I can't stop thinking about you," I found my trembling fingers typing back, "Me too." I should have known redemption would come with a price. A heavy one. When I opened the door that evening, his eyes met mine like a storm pretending to be calm. He smiled the same smile that once burned my sleep into ashes, the same lips that had rewritten my silence with forbidden poetry. But tonight, I wasn't trembling for him. I was trembling for what I had already lost. "Hey," he said softly, "you look peaceful." I nodded, half smiling, half bleeding inside. "Peaceful can be painful," I whispered back. I had extended fellowship to him, emotionally, spiritually, physically, thinking it was healing, not realizing I was handing him the keys to everything sacred in me. He didn't steal my treasure, I placed it in his palms with trust disguised as passion. When I first met him, I called it companionship. Now, I know it was a silent betrayal wearing the fragrance of comfort. Each time he touched me, I thought he was soothing my loneliness. In truth, he was draining my light, drop by drop, with every moment we called love. There's something intoxicating about being needed, especially when your heart has gone unfed for too long. You mistake hunger for connection. You mistake exhaustion for devotion. And before you know it, you're naked, not just in flesh, but in soul. Tonight, as I stood by my bedroom mirror, his cologne still lingered on my blouse. The scent reminded me of every chapter that led me here, the first kiss, the trembling nights, the laughter that echoed in shadows. But what was once a flame now felt like a mirror, showing me what I had become. "You changed me," he told me once. But what he never realized was, he unmade me first. I gave him comfort, he gave me chaos. I gave him laughter, he gave me longing. And when I finally tried to give him my goodbye, he gave me silence. Now I sit in that silence, sharing my story with the world, anonymously. Not because I'm ashamed, but because my voice is my redemption. If you've ever loved someone who wasn't yours to love, if you've ever felt your heart crumble under the weight of passion, then maybe you understand why I tell this story. So before I close this chapter, I'll say this. Broken heart never extend fellowship to a flame that's meant to test, not warm you. Because when you do, you might just lose your treasure trying to feel alive. Loudspeaker, if this story touched you, don't forget to hit that red heart-like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more true tales of love, loss, and lessons learned behind closed doors. Because some stories aren't confessions, they're redemptions. And tonight, mine is complete. Maybe I was too kind. Maybe the way I opened my doors to him was too wide, not just my home, but my heart. I called it fellowship, but deep down, it was an extension of loneliness I never admitted existed. He came in like warmth on a cold Sunday afternoon, like laughter that fills an empty kitchen. And before I knew it, my world was soaked in him, his smile, his scent, his every unspoken promise. But when he left, he didn't just walk out my door. He took something sacred, the treasure I once guarded so dearly. Now, every time I sit in silence, I hear echoes of what we were, and what I let slip away. Maybe that's why I stay anonymous, because some confessions are too raw, too real, and too unforgettable. So if you've ever given someone too much of you in the name of care, and they left you emptier than before, this story was yours too. Broken heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this confession if it touched your heart, because sometimes, Healing starts with realizing we're not alone in our mistakes. Stay tuned for more true infidelity confessions, where hearts speak the truths lips can't say aloud.